Hey, Dennis here with another video. It's been a while, but in this video, I'd like to talk about awareness, controlling your awareness and distraction, and knowing what's true. So I feel that many people don't take meditation or controlling their awareness very seriously. And what I mean by that is people say that they understand the importance of not getting distracted or taking control of their awareness, but in reality, they don't. So to start off this video, I'd like to ask you a question. If you knew more things, if you knew more information, would it actually fix your problems? Would it fix the world's problems? Now, given some thought, if you were honest, the answer would be no. Because living in the age of information, or maybe we don't even live in that age anymore, the age of Google, with all this information at our fingertips, it doesn't necessarily make us more intelligent. And with AI in the picture, that's another story, but isn't it true that with all the things that you learned using the internet, you're not necessarily more intelligent? What you really want is more wisdom, more knowing. And by knowing, I don't mean memorizing facts. I mean like true understanding. And that's where something like meditation comes into the picture here. Because see, look, for you to know something, what does it mean to know something? One example would be there's belief, right? And then there's knowing. If you were to believe something, like I believe in God. People say, well, I didn't want to get too religious here, but people say that they believe in God. But is believing in something and then knowing something is it the same thing? People think that if you were to believe in something or believe something that it's enough. But if I were to ask you, do you believe that you have two hands? And the answer would be, no, you don't believe, because you know that if you were to look at your hands, you know that you have hands. It's not a belief. It's not a matter of belief. When we question our beliefs, when we do meditation, what we're doing is we're increasing awareness. And that it's not a matter of knowing more information. Because the question would, if we were to ask ourselves, like, what's true? What's true? And confronting what's true is not an easy process. Because like for me, I like to talk about these spiritual things and knowing what's true, and people might think, yeah, let's do meditation. It sounds hippy dippy and cool and all, but the actual work, depending on how open you are of letting things go and actually wanting to know, isn't necessarily easy. It could be one of the most difficult things to do, but provided that your suffering would allow it, it's very necessary to not suffer more, I'll say, unconsciously, if that makes sense. So the process of doing meditation is not really about the meditation per se than it is to focus your awareness. And that this awareness, this thing that's being aware, seemingly comes from this brain here, this self, this thing that you call you. But what if that was just a story, and that the true self is not necessarily this outline of this thing that you call yourself looking at this video now? And that this video wasn't created in the past moment, but it's created in the present moment, the only moment that there ever was and ever will be. Now, I didn't want to get too metaphysical in this video because I want to make these videos practical for people to start doing the practices. Because if you're, say, like scientific minded, or you're what they call a materialist person, they think, okay, the world is made out of atoms, strings, and doing this meditation stuff, like what's that do? Like, so what? This woo-woo stuff, it doesn't make any sense. It's not logical. But think about it. What's so logical about this world, this universe, being made out of atoms? How's that any more logical, right? you would think, okay, yeah, that's what I learned in school. But that was told to you by someone that wasn't even an actual scientist, really. And then these things called atoms that you saw in, say, a science book. And you might think, well, okay, this isn't actually an atom. It's a picture of an atom. It's not really an atom. But I know that they're out there because I was told these things. Now, I want to make it clear that I'm not trying to make you believe some sort of conspiracy theory, right? This is not, this is not, how I say, like, basically what I'm teaching you now is epistemology, but the mind that makes sense of reality using what I call sloppy epistemology, like you're connecting these dots and they're thinking, okay, the world's flat, or whatever conspiracy theory, I'm not nitpicking one here. This is sloppy understanding. And what you really want is what's true in your experience, okay? So if I were to ask you, if we were to ask, like, okay, looking for truth here, right? What is true? Is it this religion, this religion, this religion, or science? Okay? But what you're looking for in your experience is not a particular kind of content. Like, which content is true? Is it Christianity, Buddhism, Hinduism, science? Which content is true? And what I want you to understand, that if you do the practices, is that it's not a matter of content, which content is true. It's the structure. That's what really matters. And that if you were to see through the structure, that's what's more real than anything. And that all this content exists inside of a mind that is ultimately your mind as the universe, as God. And for a lot of people, that might be too much to bear. And well, I'm just giving you a high level view here, okay? It can take years or a long time to understand some of the things I'm telling you right now. But when you're trying to undo falsehood and trying to understand what's true, there are certain things you have to confront and let go. And for some people, that might be very difficult, depending on how tightly you are holding onto something. You don't want to let it go. But think about it this way. If you really want to know what's true, you care about what's true. Most people, they don't actually care about what's true. They want what's true on their terms. So when I'm getting you to investigate your mind, what mind is, people still want to do it maybe, oh, I want to do it the Buddhist way, or, okay, we have to do it the scientific way. And there's a time and place for those where they can intertwine, because the mind and everything is intertwined together. People want to separate or make these distinctions within reality and only do it within some sort of narrow process. But ultimately, there is no actual process because it can't be grounded into anything. But yet, there has to be some sort of technique. And meditation, doing some sort of meditation is one of those ways, or can be. When you do meditation, what's ultimately happening is that you're not just understanding this mind, how it works. What's happening is reality itself, as you, is understanding itself. Reality is awakening to reality. But as this happens, you, as it, may not even know that that's what's happening, is that this reality, the mind, the one mind, is awakening to itself. Which is why when you ask certain questions like, give me a sign, how do I know if I'm on the right path? And you focus your awareness doing meditation practices, the mind, or you rather, starts to notice these patterns, these synchronicities that were always there, or some sort of thing that you were focusing on is reflected outwards in this world. But the idea is that if you, how to say, don't do the practices, you will never see it, because there's only understanding, there's only knowing by doing the practices, not by believing something and then just getting brainwashed by some ideology. Because think about what I was telling you earlier in this video about believing something, like you believe, or the belief, and there's knowing, right? Like I don't believe I have two hands. I know I have. But this knowing isn't about grounding it in some sort of quote unquote proof that a scientific mind would want. Because this proof cannot be grounded in anything, because the idea, well, science believes that understanding, there's me, right? And there's these atoms out there that I observe and I can understand them. Then we have this proof, right? But the proof always needs proof of the proof of the proof of the proof. It's always grounded in something, and it's very, how say, ongoing, forever going cycle. So the mind, which is infinite, is trying to grasp itself using some finite means, which is what science is. And science ultimately doesn't understand this. This is why you can do 1,000 years of science and you'll never get there. Because if the world is infinite, and science is a finite process, which is what it is never any closer. It is always infinite steps away from infinity, from grasping what it is. And that when you do something like meditation and grasp infinity of the mind, it happens in the present moment. And there's no actual process by which it can happen, because there is ultimately no process. There's no technique, which is the paradox, I guess. So I ask you, if you were to understand the importance of meditation, if you were to understand that it's not about getting more information by searching on Google. Heck, most people don't even search or use Google search well enough or ask good questions well enough to solve their own problems. Or even now we have AI, which is a whole another can of worms here. But think about it. Like, are your problems, do they exist in some? Is it a matter of logic, of you finding the right logic? And the answer is no. The knowing that can be understood through self-inquiry and meditation is very difficult to explain, because it's not something that you can make explicit. It's implicit. No different than a really good joke. Like if I were to tell you a joke, and there's something that's being said that can't be expressed through words, something behind the words. You read between the lines. And this intelligence can grasp that thing, which is what you're doing with meditation or self-inquiry. I was thinking earlier today about this joke. Well, I'll just tell you. So it's not really a joke, but I was telling this student of mine about this character called Cat Dog. And if you were seeing it, it's from the US, right? And they didn't know what Cat Dog looks like. And I told them, I was like, well, it's, half dog, half cat. And at the time, we were talking about animals, certain animals that are hybrids, and they have these mixed features. Like in the features of the animal that has this mixture of different features that you can kind of see, like, oh, there's this part of this one animal, and there's this part of another. So when I showed her the picture of Cat Dog, she ended up laughing, and she didn't tell me why, but I think I kind of just knew that she expected Cat Dog to have this mixture of different features, like, okay, there's the cat part here, and there's the dog part here. But the actual Cat Dog is literally half cat, half dog. And so this misunderstanding of what she thought it was going to be was actually funny. And the reason why I tell you this joke is because when you do meditation or you're doing consciousness work, you're raising your level of awareness, right? It's not that the content changes, it's that this misunderstanding that you had of reality, it's understood from a different context, which changes what you understand of the world, right? So the content was that she assumed Cat Dog looked a certain way, right? But the actual Cat Dog looked very different than what she imagined, so it's funny. And this process also works no different than a very good magic trick, right? So in magic, I would say there's probably like two main concepts here. One would be assumption, and the second being distraction. So, like any good magic trick, so cards, coins, whatever, there's this assumption of how something is done. You think it's like this or it's like that, but actually no, dead wrong. And that there's these distractions, like the mind is distracted elsewhere without seeing what's true, right? And that's the same way that awakening or when you're doing consciousness work, it's the same process. Like you assume, oh, maybe it's this religion, or maybe it's this one, or maybe it's not even that. Maybe it's science. And these assumptions is what gets you, right? Because it was none of those. And the mind is distracted, endlessly distracted by this thing or that. This person irritated me. It's just constantly distracted. It could be things like gossip is a distraction, or what I like to think of as advanced gossip, which is a conspiracy theory. And what I'm saying here is like I'm not trying to get you to believe conspiracy theory. You have to do the practices, but the mind gets endlessly distracted. And what's interesting about this is that the mind, or in reality, is infinite. So it has infinite power. It knows all the tricks. Infinite power to forever distract you. And if you don't take any control of the mind, then well, at some level, it seems like there's no hope, right? But luckily, this infinite mind, which can infinitely distract you, it knows every trick in the book. It's like playing a game of chess, and it knows every single move. And not only does it know every single move, it invented the game. So you're thinking, well, what chance do I have? Well, luckily, this mind, on the flip side, so say like a coin, right? There's heads and tails. If it can infinitely distract itself, it can also use the same power to know itself, right? So you have to flip it around. And my point is that a lot of people don't use this power. It's not even recognized at all in society, that we think we have to be logical and the world's made out of atoms and there's these things called strings, and that if we do science for a little bit more longer, we could finally understand the truth. And what I'm saying is no, it's not true, right? You don't need more information. And to the extent that you do, it's different information, I would say, like the kind of things I'm telling you in this video, to get the mind, some grist for the mill, something for the mind to work with, so it can realize what it is. And that this understanding recontextualizes your experience. And then people will ask, like, how do you know? What book did you read? It's not going to be because of some book or whatever. It's going to be because you did the practices. And that this knowing will be, I would say, probably pretty much impossible to explain explicitly. Just like a very good joke. Excuse me. Just like a very good joke, because you either get it or you don't. And this intelligence, it has to grasp itself. There's no process. Okay? And maybe another example I didn't get into in this video was that another way, like another practice you could do to understand what I'm talking about is, say, if you were to count numbers and, like 1, 2, 3, right? And if you were to keep going, I can ask you, like, well, when does it stop? And then you would say, well, it doesn't. Yeah, but how do you know that? How do you know? And at what point, like, what number did you get to until you realize that, right? So the same with meditation. You're doing the meditation, but maybe you don't know what I'm talking about. And then one day it hits you. Like, how many hours did it take you to get to the awakening? And then you say, well, I know. And then somebody outside your experience will ask you, like, how do you know? How do you know? Right? This is almost like God's joke. It's the cosmic joke, as they say. And at this point, I'm kind of rambling, but I am trying to get other people, quote unquote, to understand the importance of taking control of your mind. Because that's all there is. And if you don't, this infinite mind will throw everything at you to distract you. Every ideology, every conspiracy theory, problems of other people you don't like, some negative news, some sickness, which can be a blessing in disguise if you reflect upon it, but it will give you everything in this kitchen and the kitchen sink. I tell you this, everything in the kitchen sink to distract you so you don't look within. And then people, they'll ask you like, well, what's that going to do? So what? And this kind of questioning, like, yeah, but so what? So what? What's it going to do for me? This kind of attitude, as well as extreme, and I mean extreme, indifference to why this matters, the apathy, it's two of the biggest problems in this work. Like, so what? So what? Or like, who cares? What's it gonna do? It's like telling a kid like why they need to focus their mind and study and do these, study hard and study hard and be a better person, I guess. Of course, yeah, kids playing is important, but kids they don't understand this, right? They don't understand the value of discipline and work. What they understand is candy. And we could say that, yeah, it's true that a kid's mind is not fully developed, and that when you get older, you get more wisdom and whatnot, but even the adult mind can be at various extremely different levels of consciousness, different levels of awareness, and that for some people, to the extent that they even do a meditation practice, they might be thinking, well, yeah, it relieves some stress. I have the stress, and meditation relieves that for me. But what I'm saying is, even that is the candy. No different than a kid wanting actual candy. That's peanuts compared to the actual wisdom and the knowing that you get from meditation and doing consciousness work. Okay, so with that, I think I said enough for now. And these things will need to be said again, because it's not like I can say this once and you'll get it and then like, oh yeah, I forever got it. It'll come and go and you'll forget, and I know this because it happens to me. It happened to me. It happens to everybody. Which is why I make these videos. And it's been a while since I've been making videos. The last video was the one I made after a long while, which I haven't even uploaded it yet. It's probably been a couple weeks since I made it. But that video and this video is going up soon, and I intend to make more videos, not just for myself. Well, I should say, not just for you, but for me. Because anything I do for you is doing it for me, and anything I do for me is I do it for you. If you know, you know. Well, with that said, I'll talk to you next time. Oh, and if this video helps, please share it, like it. You need some help with this stuff, which, by all means, I want somebody to work through. I want to work through other people. I don't want to make it just about me. But anyway, with that said, I'll talk to you next time.